Hello and welcome to the Experiencing Love podcast. I'm your host, Philip Jocks, and I'm so glad that you're here. I have to be honest, I am so in love with life right now. There's just so much for me to love. I was thinking about it as I was running around and getting my breakfast and lunch and dinner ready for the day. And I was listening to music and I was dancing around, and I just finished taking an extremely cold shower. I was just feeling incredible. I was feeling blissful. I was feeling grateful. And things were out of the routine today. They weren't exactly according to plan, yet I loved the changes. Not that the changes themselves were any good, but I just appreciated that something different was happening, something new, something exciting. And I think I'm just really in touch with my lover right now. I just feel everything so strongly, so passionately, so sensually. That's part of what the lover does. It connects us to that part of our being. You know, man or woman, we have emotions, we feel, and when we're truly in our lover, we can feel deeply, we can feel strongly. It can make us feel alive. I was finishing up a book that I was reading, and it was just so crazy to compare my life to the book. You know, the book King, Warrior, Magician, Lover by Robert Moore and Douglas Gillette. They were describing the lover and how there's the shadow variants of the lover. And one of them is the addicted lover, or they referenced it as like the addict. And the other one was the impotent lover. The addicted lover, the addict, it feels love too much. It loves life too much without the boundaries, without the control. It loves the sensations of life. It loves the feelings and the experiences of life. And while it's good to feel, if you feel too much, it could hinder the other areas of your life. It could hinder the other archetypes. That's where things like alcohol addictions and drug addictions come from, because the addicted lover loves those sensations. And you could just input any addiction into the fill in the blank. And then the other side was the impotent lover, which is the type of person that doesn't quite know what their emotions are, isn't really quite in touch with them, doesn't understand them, and so almost feels this blanket feeling of nothingness, of, as the book stated, haziness. I remember very specifically when I was first starting therapy, learning to get in touch with myself and who I was, and building my self-confidence and self-esteem, and slowly rediscovering who I was, no longer being depressed, no longer being anxious. I had to learn to feel. And I used to walk around saying, I feel as though I'm in a fog. I don't know what's 2-3 steps in front of me, but I know that there is a next step, so I just keep taking it. And in the book, they described it exactly as that someone in their impotent lover will claim that they are living in a fog, living in a haze, because they just don't know what they're feeling. And that when you feel like you're in a fog, you feel like you're in a haze, it actually is almost a defense mechanism for when you get really, really close to some, in quotes, hot sensation, like an actual feeling. So I'm really grateful for my journey, because I know exactly what it's like to embody the impotent lover, and I also know what it's like to embody the addict. From my experience, I know that I've been primed to love since the day I was born. And from reading this book, it makes so much sense. Going back and forth from the impotent lover to the addict throughout my younger years, my childhood, my young adult years, I've only just recently started to get in touch with the full scope of the lover, to get in touch with the lover archetype and what it means to love from a point of view of mature masculinity. I've always had the capacity to love. I've always been growing it. And now that I feel like I'm finally in touch with that part of myself that wasn't quite developed, it wasn't quite clarified, it wasn't quite honed in, I feel truly powerful, because from the lover comes the why in why we do anything. It's the reason why we feel a certain way, why we do certain things. Like, we are always searching for some feeling. And if you don't even know what the feeling is and you don't know how to feel it, you just know it exists and you're trying to reach it. That's where you have situations like depression and anxiety where I'm speaking from experience now. I didn't know where I was even trying to go. So I just felt stuck where I was. When I found out that I had depression, when I first started therapy, I went into therapy with the aim of finding tools to reduce stress, because I thought that was my big problem. Self-diagnosed myself. I was like, yeah, I'm just stressed. I'm not doing well in college because I'm stressed. Like, I don't like this area of my life because of stress. I just need to, dial down the stress, talk about it in therapy, and I'll be on my way. I'll be great. And it should have been a little bit of an early warning flag as to how severe my condition was by how fast I was able to find a therapist. Because one thing I also heard was people took so long to find one, so long to get into offices. Like, therapists were booked as far as the eye can see, and I got in within a couple days. And I just thought, wow, I'm so lucky. I just found the one therapist that had an opening. This is great. No. Yeah, my intake form definitely showed them that I needed help ASAP, which I still kind of giggle about now, because I got in exactly when I was supposed to, when I needed it. And I got into therapy and I found out that I was diagnosed with depression. I forgot which one it was. I think it's the middle one, not severe, but moderate, I guess. And when I first found out about it, I remember becoming even more depressed. And it was because I thought it was a permanent condition. I thought that as soon as I was diagnosed with it, that was a part of who I was and I could never change it, and I would always be sad. I would always be down. I would always feel less motivated, less driven. I thought that was just who I was. I created that label and I placed it on myself and I said, I'm depressed. That means this is how I have to feel. And I slowly got out of that mindset over the next couple weeks, in terms of I knew I didn't have to feel a certain way, but I did keep the label on that I have depression. And that means that I maybe get sad easier or sad more often, or I feel less motivated, or stress stresses me out even more. Whatever I was saying to myself in my head, I just let that run over and over and over again. And I kept going to therapy and I kept getting help. And slowly but surely, I started learning tools. And I started having experiences where I started growing as a person. I wasn't just learning these tools, but I was embodying them. I was making sure that my psyche was growing, that I was at a core fundamental level changing and evolving. And after 2-something years of doing this work, of building myself, of growing, I remember just looking back and realizing that, wow, I haven't felt any signs of depression in months. And in that time, I completely stopped associating myself with depression. I've felt depressed before, but it's not something that is a label that I need to put on myself and say, this is who I am now. Because once I learned the skills of how not to be depressed, I just learned that, okay, to not be depressed, I just have to use these skills. Because it was a simple equation to me. I looked at myself and I said, I know what works for me to get out of depression when I feel depressed. So if I just do those all the time, then I'm no longer depressed. And then I started learning even more about depression. Like, what is it? Where does it come from? What does it mean? And I constantly learn new definitions to this day. Because the newest definition that I understand is depression can pop up when you're not in touch with a certain part of yourself. I see a very interesting correlation these days that depression and anxiety and mental illness, as they say, is going through the roof, is skyrocketing. And at first, when I heard that news, and this has been going on for the past however many years and decades, I started to think, oh, it's because we have better ways to detect these things or to measure them or to diagnose them. But then I also thought, now, maybe it has to do with an even stronger lack of people stepping into their mature masculinity and their mature femininity. Maybe it has to do with a lack of the ritual processes that help a boy become a man or a girl become a woman. There isn't that much of that anymore these days. There aren't these ceremonies and rituals that really signify to the person themselves that you are now a man or you are now a woman. You know, we have different things in different religions. We have in the schools like graduation, But do those children really feel as though they've unlocked a new part of themselves when they take that step, when they complete that graduation? Studies show that they don't. It's just their next step, but they don't have a transformation where they go from a boy to a man. We don't have that as much anymore. For better or worse, that's just the reality of life right now. And a part of me feels so strongly called to doing something about it. At best, I still have a solid 80 years left on this planet. And I think to myself, what can I do in 80 years to help at least one boy become a man? I have helped myself go from being a boy to becoming a man. And I acknowledge I did not do it alone. I had to commit to it. I had to have the discipline to let the little boy go and embody the archetypes of a man. I'm not perfect. I still slip and fall into my shadow variants, and each of them have their own quirks. And the point is not to be perfect. The point is just to be a little bit better every single day. And if there's any boy that I want to help become a man, it's going to be my son. I don't have children yet, but I know that one day I will be standing in front of a boy that I call my own, that I have raised, that I have grown to love and to appreciate. And I will see this boy and I will know that it is time for him to become a man. Not in that sense of getting rid of the childlike play that he has, but getting rid of all the immaturity that exists in boyhood and allowing that love and that passion and that spirit and the wisdom to grow into a man. It is a process. The lover still embodies the playfulness and the fun of life. You can still tap into the inner child and have fun. But the home of a man should be with his king, his magician, his warrior, and his lover. That should be his core. That should be his baseline. Coming back to those things. Because that's what makes a rounded man. That's what makes a man that isn't depressed, that isn't anxious, that isn't stressed. He takes on challenges and thrives in them. He protects and he provides for the people in his life. He protects the boy energy. He protects the girl energy. He protects the feminine energy. He creates more men in his life. We have very little of that nowadays. I speak directly from experience. I've hated the idea of masculinity for years. Not because I hated masculinity, but because I hated what I believed masculinity was. I've only ever seen the immature kind. The kind that overly drinks, overly does drugs. The kind that's violent or aggressive, egotistical. The kind that puts other people down to lift themselves up. I saw all those things and I just got tired of it. It made me sick. And then I got to a point of threshold where I just needed something new. I was living with my feminine mask for too long. It was hurting me inside because I was denying who I was. There was parts of me that was already tapping into my king and my warrior and my magician and my lover, but I wasn't quite fully there yet. But those parts of me were calling to me. And they were saying, Philip, look at us. Philip, see us. You're ignoring us. You're hiding us. Why? We are a part of you. We're a part of life. Share us with the world. And finally, I reached that threshold and I broke through. And I said, enough is enough. I am who I am. This is what makes me the man that I am. And at first, when I let that happen, I was almost frightened of what's life going to be like. And I can promise this, since then, life has been nothing but a dream, a life of fulfillment. My life is bigger than it's ever been before. My challenges are bigger. Don't get me wrong. It's not like all my problems disappeared. No, actually many more appeared, but they're the type that call me to be a bigger person. So I sit there with gratitude, not with anxiety and not with resentment. My purpose, the purpose of my life, is to be a loving gift for myself and others. I love on myself for myself so that I can love on others for others. The gift that I want to give to the world at this stage of my life is this feeling of transformation, is this feeling of growth. While the specifics have been changing constantly over the last 2 years, there's a core direction that I've been following. And it's that direction of I want to impact the world. I want to transform people's lives. I want them to feel that transformation and I want them to feel that goodness that I experienced. Because when we feel something good in life, we want to share it. We want to give it to other people. I feel called to do that and I'm following that call. Far too often people hear the king giving them a call and they ignore it. They say, it's not the right time. I don't have enough money. I don't have the energy. And yet they do other actions. They make other decisions that lower their time, lower their energy, lower their ability to do more. I know what I'm called to do and I'm following it. And the more I've been getting in touch with these archetypes, the better that these episodes have been feeling for me. I'm still learning my path and the direction I'm going in. And yet that uncertainty fills me with excitement and joy and passion. So I can't wait to one day listen back to these episodes where I really had no clue what was going to go on. And I could think back to myself, oh, Philip, you just wait. You just wait to see what this next year is going to be like. Because I walked into 2025 knowing that this was going to be an incredible year. And a month has already passed. This is episode 42. 41 days have passed. So let's see where this year goes together. I hope you have a gorgeous, a beautiful, a fantastic rest of your day. And I look forward to seeing you in the next one. And also, if you enjoyed this episode or some of these past episodes, I would love it if you would send it to someone who could hear it today. You don't have to explain to them. You don't have to explain to me why they need to hear it. Just if you believe it, follow it. Once again, I'll look forward to seeing you in the next one. I love you.